It wasn't just a post-game interview. It wasn't just another "we'll bounce back" soundbite. It was a moment. The one that snapped the camel's back, melted the internet, and flipped the entire Cleveland Browns power structure upside down in real time. Shedeur Sanders, in full view of a live national audience, clapped back at Kevin Stefanski on ESPN. And when we say clap back, we don't mean some spicy quote taken out of context. No, we're talking about a live, raw, surgical verbal takedown that sent shockwaves through the locker room, front office, league offices, and, let's be real, the soul of Cleveland football. 7 minutes. That's all it took. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. 7 minutes of live television to pull the curtains back on months of dysfunction. The fake smiles, the locker room fractures, the whisper frustrations gone. Exposed. Laid bare by a 21-year-old rookie quarterback with better poise under pressure than the entire Browns coaching staff combined. Let's set the stage. It was supposed to be routine. Post-game coverage. Another disappointing performance. Shedeur, who had once again been rotated in and out with no rhythm, was brought up to the booth. The hosts were ready for the usual deflection. The "it's about the team" script, the nod, the grin, the safe answers. But Shedeur, he wasn't playing that game anymore. The second he leaned into the mic, you could feel it, that chill, that stillness before storm. And then, with full eye contact, zero stuttering, and a voice that didn't shake once, he said it. "I don't play scared. I don't think the team should either. We've got talent, but we've got coaches calling games like they're afraid to win. That's not how you lead." Boom. Silence in the booth. Eyebrows lifted. You could hear producers in the background scrambling. But he wasn't done. "I prepare every day like I'm the guy. And the guys in that locker room know it. I'm not here to protect egos. I'm here to win." That wasn't a quote. That was a line from a declaration of war. And Kevin Stefanski, he was watching. The whole NFL was watching. And within seconds, clips were flooding social media. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, you name it. And what started as a post-game segment turned into the kind of viral explosion that doesn't just trend, it rewrites the plot. Because Shedeur didn't just call out his coach. He called out the entire system. That old school, fall-in-line mentality, the coach knows best approach, the outdated play-it-safe ideology that's been choking creativity out of players for decades, he torched it with one calm, articulate, very public slap of reality. And just like that, the Browns had a full-blown crisis on their hands. It wasn't just the fans backing Shedeur anymore. It wasn't just locker room whispers. This was undeniable. A quarterback taking a shot, not at a play call, not at a scheme, but at the philosophy that's been holding the team back. And here's the thing. It worked, because within days, the ripple effects started crashing down. Sources from inside the building confirmed the chaos. Stefanski reportedly stormed into a closed-door meeting with ownership, demanding control, clarity, and, get this, respect. Meanwhile, players were holding their own meetings, quiet conversations with management, captains stepping forward and saying what everyone already knew. He's not just our quarterback. He's our leader. You don't come back from that. And Stefanski? He didn't. By the end of the week, he was out. Resigned, they said. But let's not sugarcoat it. He was pushed. The players wanted Shedeur. The city wanted Shedeur. And the only thing standing in the way of that was the coach who refused to let go of control. The new era didn't wait for permission. It just happened. Let's talk about that for a second. The why. Why did this resonate so hard? Why did Shedeur's words hit the league like a tsunami? Because this isn't just a Browns problem. It's a generational shift. The NFL has been dragging its feet into the future, clinging to an old formula. Coach-led, top-down, control-heavy leadership. Do your job. Stay in your lane. Don't speak out of turn. But Gen Z? That's not their game. This new wave of athletes is built different. They're media literate, brand conscious, unafraid. They don't wait for power. They take it, not out of rebellion, but because they know their value. They know their voices reach. And Shedeur, he's now the face of that movement. The irony? He never shouted, never cussed, never disrespected anyone. He didn't throw tantrums. He didn't go full diva. He told the truth, calmly, directly, and in front of millions. And that's what made it powerful. That's what made it unignorable. His stats already spoke volumes. Higher yards per attempt than the starter. Fewer turnovers. More explosive plays per drive. He was outperforming the depth chart, while also carrying himself like a 10-year veteran. The teammates noticed. The fans noticed. Now the league noticed. And the Browns? They couldn't ignore it anymore. Front office meetings started shifting. Game plans were rewritten. Player roles adjusted. Shedeur's name started appearing at the top of the whiteboard in permanent marker. Not penciled in. Not if things go south. He's the guy now. And if you think that's where the story ends, you don't know how deep this goes. Because Shedeur's rise is a culture quake. The aftershocks are everywhere. Merch sales? Through the roof. His jersey outsold the top 5 picks combined within 48 hours of that interview. ESPN analysts dubbed it the most defining moment for a rookie QB in the social media era. Sports talk radio lost its mind. Older analysts wrung their hands about respect and order, while younger ones praised his candor. And the fans? They rallied. Murals popped up in downtown Cleveland overnight. Graffiti-style art Shedeur with phrases like, "Let him lead," and "Authenticity wins." Students wore Sanders jerseys to school. A local high school band even changed their halftime show to a remix of Primetime as a nod to both Sanders men. But this wasn't just Cleveland hype. NFL players from other teams started quoting him. Stars reposted clips with comments like "respect," and he said what needed to be said. Veteran QBs took subtle digs at their own organizations. And suddenly, the league had to sit down and have a real conversation. Are we the problem? Because what Shedeur tapped into wasn't just frustration. It was a growing hunger for truth, for leadership, for authenticity. For athletes who don't just play the game but own it. And that brings us here, to a new Browns team, a new leader, and a fan base that's finally seeing a future they can believe in, not because someone told them to, but because they felt it happen. What's next? That's the fun part. Now the spotlight stays on Shedeur. Can he keep the momentum? Can he back up the leadership with results? Can the Browns support him without suffocating him? Time will tell. But one thing is already certain. This isn't the same team it was a month ago. And it's definitely not the same league. Shedeur Sanders didn't just change the depth chart. He changed the conversation. So, Browns fans, are you riding with him? Because the story? It's only just beginning. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this the power shift the Browns needed, or a sign of the league going off the rails? And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Because with Shedeur at the center of the storm, you know the drama's far from over. The era of Shedeur Sanders isn't coming. It already arrived, kicked the door off the hinges, and left a note that reads, "Either get behind me or get out of the way." Because the Browns? They've been changed, rewired, flipped upside down like a table in a bar fight. The air around the team feels different, electric, even unstable. There's tension, but the good kind. The kind you feel before something big happens. Not the quiet, depressing tension of a team clinging to broken systems. This is revolution energy. This is we're not going back to that old nonsense energy. And let's not kid ourselves. This didn't just happen because the organization suddenly decided to believe in the kid. No, this happened because Shedeur forced the issue. On live TV, in front of the league, in front of his teammates, in front of every Browns fan who has ever screamed at their television about a coach playing scared. It's not just that he embarrassed Kevin Stefanski. It's that he did it calmly, like a man giving you facts, like someone who knows the cameras are rolling and welcomes it. And that, more than anything, is what sent the message. He's not waiting for permission anymore. He is the franchise now. Let's be real. What Shedeur pulled off in that 7-minute ESPN interview, that wasn't just a confrontation. It was a power transfer. The Browns had spent the entire season trying to keep him quiet, trying to control the narrative, trying to delay the inevitable. But the truth, it was always bubbling up. Because when you've got a quarterback who's outperforming the starter, who's loved by the locker room, who's out-prepping coaches at meetings, and who's got literal fans write his name on posters next to "Save Our Season" in permanent marker, there's only so long you can pretend that's not the guy. And once Shedeur made his move, there was no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. The Browns front office scrambled to get ahead of the message, but it was too late. Stefanski was already on his way out. Not with fireworks, not with public drama. Just a quiet, awkward resignation that fooled no one. The man was pushed. He got out before the headlines could turn the screws further. And the organization? They were too embarrassed to fight it. They folded because they had no choice. The new coaching staff was announced within days. Younger, fresher, a new offensive coordinator who, when asked about Shedeur's role, literally said, "The offense start with him. We go as far as he takes us." And that's how fast a culture can shift when the right person kicks the door down. But it didn't stop there. Within 48 hours of Stefanski's exit, reports started coming in of organizational meetings being led by players, captains, position leaders, and yes, Shedeur met directly with ownership, not to rebel, not to make demands, but to be heard. And the Browns, for once in their long, stumbling history, actually listened. They realized a moment was bigger than one coach, bigger than one playbook. This was about identity. This was about culture. This was about choosing to embrace something new, something modern, something authentic. Because let's be real, Shedeur is bigger than the Browns now. He's a movement. Social media exploded. Clips of the interview have now racked up over 20 million views across platforms. High school players are reposting his words like gospel. "I'm not here to protect egos," is already being printed on bootleg t-shirts and hung in college locker rooms. Younger athletes see him and feel permission. Permission to speak up. Permission to lead out loud. Permission to call out the nonsense and say, "No, I'm not here to play politics. I'm here to play football." And in Cleveland, the city has never felt more alive. Browns fans aren't just watching football. They're watching a cultural shift happen in real time. And they're all in. Local news stations ran interviews with fans outside the stadium a morning after the ESPN segment. And the sentiment was universal. That's our QB now. You got fans showing up to practice wearing mock press badges. A sports bar in downtown Cleveland literally renamed one of its wings to Shedeur Sauce. Another fan crowd-funded billboards across the city with giant black and white photos of Sanders and the words, "Let leaders lead." It's wild, it's real, and it's working. Because here's what no one saw coming. The team is winning. Since the change, since Stefanski stepped down, since Shedeur was finally handed the offense, the Browns have started playing like a different squad entirely. Faster, sharper, more aggressive, like they've been unclenched. Like the anxiety of having to walk on eggshells around outdated leadership is finally gone. Receivers are running crisper routes. The offensive line is blocking like their lives depend on it. The defense, which was always elite, now plays like they actually trust the offense not to hand the ball back in 90 seconds. You can't fake that kind of energy. And Shedeur, he's balling. Not just statistically, though yes, his numbers are objectively nuts. We're talking 300-plus yards per game, red zone efficiency through the roof, and 0 turnovers in back-to-back weeks. But more than that, he's commanding. He walks into the huddle like he's been doing it for a decade, points at the mic, controls the tempo, makes pre-snap adjustments that look like chess moves. And the best part? The whole team follows him. This isn't a case of a rookie earning respect over time. This is a guy who walked in with it, and everyone around him just aligned, like gravity. But of course, not everyone loves it. There's still resistance, mostly from the old guard, the anonymous quotes, the radio guys with 30-year-old coaching takes, the ex-players who grumble about respect for position and waiting your turn. You know the type, the ones who think leadership is something you earn only after you've been silent for 3 years and worn a headset for at least 2. But those voices, they're fading. Fast, because the rest of the league is watching, too. And you can feel it. Quiet envy, quiet admiration, a recognition that something new is happening in Cleveland, and they might have missed a wave. Young quarterbacks around the league are taking notes. Young coaches are whispering to assistants about building like that. Franchises that once scoffed at the idea of player-led culture are now wondering if that's the future. Because what Shedeur did wasn't just call out a coach. He shattered the myth that players have to stay in their lane. He showed that a quarterback can challenge authority and still lead, that you can be young, bold, and effective, that you don't have to choose between respect and authenticity. You can have both. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the NFL's been missing all along. So, where do we go from here? The Browns have their guy. The league has its newest storyline. The fans have a reason to believe. But more importantly, the culture has shifted. We're watching it in real time. The era of fall in line and wait your turn is cracking. And in its place, something more powerful, something more honest, something built around trust, transparency, and the kind of leadership that isn't afraid to call out what's broken. Whether the Browns can hold it all together remains to be seen. This story is still unfolding. But one thing's already locked in. Shedeur Sanders isn't just the face of Cleveland. He's the future of football. It was a changing of the guard. Shedeur Sanders didn't just speak his mind. He ripped the lid off decades of NFL tradition with the calm authority of a man who knows exactly who he is and refuses to apologize for it. This wasn't about Stefanski. Not really. That was just the spark. This was about every coach who's ever confused control with leadership. Every exec who's ever said he's not ready when what they really meant was he's not obedient enough. Every team that drafted a talent and then smothered it under 6 layers of outdated bureaucracy because that's how it's always been done. Shedeur said, no more. And suddenly, everyone had to make a choice. Do you stand behind a system that's actively working against your own success? Or do you stand behind the one guy who's been leading you in silence, waiting for the moment to speak the truth the rest of the building was too afraid to say out loud? The Browns players chose quickly. Behind closed doors, players were already fed up with the passive-aggressive power games. They'd seen the politics. They'd felt the shift in the locker room dynamics every time Shedeur got skipped in reps, or worse, got trotted out as a human shield when things were already collapsing, just so the staff could say, see, he's not ready. Except he was ready. He always was. And they knew it. But saying it out loud, that required guts. That required a moment like this. So when Shedeur stood there on live TV and called it what was a fear-driven, ego-fueled, success-blocking mess, the team didn't flinch. They leaned in because finally someone had said it. The leader didn't come from the head coach. He came from the QB room, from the quiet prep sessions, from the guy who wasn't trying to play politics or kiss up or climb some imaginary hierarchy. He was just trying to win. And that authenticity, that transparency, that's what today's players crave. This isn't 2005 anymore. NFL locker rooms are younger, sharper, more connected to the world around them. Players want more than just rah-rah speeches. And to your job, they want a vision, a culture, a real leader, someone who shows up every day, walks the talk, and isn't afraid to check the system when it's failing. And Shedeur, he's that guy. He didn't need to throw a tantrum. He didn't need to scream. He just delivered. And the city felt it. Cleveland has been through it. We know. This is a fan base that's weathered more football heartbreak than probably any other. The word loyalty means something very different here. It's not about blind faith. It's about showing up even when you've been burned 1,000 times before. And somehow, in the middle of all that cynicism, Shedeur gave him a reason to believe again. That might sound dramatic, but tell me it's not true. You could feel the energy shift the day after the interview. Brown's Twitter, usually a swirling mess of memes, sadness, and misplaced optimism, was suddenly hopeful, not in a delusional, we're going to the Super Bowl way, in a grounded, we got the right guy now kind of way. Bars were packed with people watching practice clips. Fans were calling into radio shows saying things like, I haven't been this excited since '99. The younger fans, they're already treating him like a cultural icon. They're posting edited highlights with movie trailer music, overlaying quotes from the ESPN segment like gospel. The older fans, even they're starting to soften. Because, yeah, maybe they were skeptical at first. Maybe they didn't love the public call-out. But then they saw the results. The poise, the leadership, the wins. And let's not ignore that part. Since Shedeur became the undisputed starter, and more importantly, since the Browns started listening to him, things have turned fast. The offense, which had been limping along, suddenly started firing. No more dink and dunk. No more scared play calling. No more running on 3rd and 9 just to stay on schedule. Now, you've got deep shots, creative movement, tempo, confidence. And it's not just because Shedeur is more talented. It's because the team believes again. He leads huddles like he was born to do it. When he talks, the room listens. He's not yelling. He's commanding. He's clear. And most importantly, he's holding everyone accountable, including himself. That's the kind of leadership the NFL's been missing. And while the Browns are riding the wave, the rest of the league is watching with binoculars and anxiety. Because you better believe opposing GMs are asking their scouting departments, how did we miss this? How did we let this kid go to Cleveland? And maybe even more terrifying, how do we stop this from happening again? Because Shedeur's influence isn't staying inside the Cleveland locker room. It's spreading. Across the league, younger quarterbacks are watching him and asking, why not me? Why can't I call out a broken system? Why can't I lead with honesty? Why do I have to wait 3 years and ask permission to speak? Front offices are now facing a whole new world. One where the players are the culture. One where leadership can't be faked with platitudes and slogans. One where authenticity is currency. And Shedeur? He's cashing in. He's not just redefining what a franchise quarterback looks like. He's redefining what leadership looks like. Forget the corny huddle speeches. Forget the orchestrated media training. What this moment showed is that people, fans, players, everyone want someone who says what needs to be said, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. And look, the road ahead isn't going to be all roses. There's going to be pushback. The traditionalists aren't going down quietly. There will be people waiting for him to fail, for the Browns to stumble, for a bad game to hit, just so they can say, see, he should have kept quiet. But here's what they don't get. Shedeur didn't seize the moment because he thought he was perfect. He did it because he knew he was ready. And that's what separates him. That's what makes this different. He didn't act out of ego. He acted out of urgency, out of love for the game, out of belief in his team, out of frustration with a system that was breaking what could have been beautiful. And now, he owns the moment. The Browns are no longer a joke. They're a headline. They're must-watch TV, not just because they're winning, but because they're becoming a real franchise, becoming a place players want to be, becoming a symbol of what's possible when leadership finally reflects the people doing the work. It's not perfect. It won't be smooth, but it's real. And in a league that's spent decades stuck in the past, that might just be the most dangerous thing of all. So here's the final thought. Shedeur Sanders didn't embarrass his coach on live TV. He liberated his team. He took a risk that most wouldn't. He spoke the truth others were too afraid to. And by doing that, he did more than just ignite a fan base. He changed the entire conversation. And if the NFL is paying attention, they'll realize something simple, something terrifying, something beautiful. The future isn't coming. The future's already under center in Cleveland. And his name is Shedeur Sanders. Let us know in the comments. Are you riding with Shedeur's vision? Or are you still clinging to the old ways? Either way, subscribe now. Because whatever happens next, you'll want a front row seat.